The year is 2024. Everyone and their mother are talking about J.K. Rowling and how she is now officially a TERF. We are in the latter half of my series documenting every single transphobic thing that J.K. Rowling ever did. And some of you by now may have noticed that I am parodying loved creators that I watch frequently. There is a chance by the thumbnail that you already know who I am parodying today. Nevertheless, let me know in the comments below who you think I am this week. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. Hello and welcome to Matriarchetype. I will be your goddess for today because I am chronically online. So today I'm going to talk to you about everything that J.K. Rowling did. Ever. No, I'm joking. I'm going to scale it down just to the things that are transphobic because even that has taken me weeks. How did you start 2024? Well, in this series, we're going to start it with some Holocaust denial, thanks to J.K. Rowling. On the 13th of March, replying to a tweet that said, "The Nazis burned books on trans healthcare and research. Why are you so desperate to uphold their ideology around gender?" Which, bear in mind, at the time had 5 views. Let's just keep that in mind. J.K. Rowling responded with, How? How did you type this out and press send without thinking, I should maybe check my sources for this, because it might have been a fever dream? Something interesting you might not know about writers is that they have to do a lot of research before they write their books. But clearly, J.K. Rowling has never researched too much into what happened with the Nazis, because it's pretty well known that the trans community were one of the first to be targeted, and the burning of books began with the burning of gender records and stuff like that, because this is how it really started. On Wednesday, J.K. Rowling implicitly denied that transgender individuals were targeted and that books about them were burned in Nazi Germany. This assertion contradicts abundant evidence that transgender people were among the first targeted by the Nazis' rise to power in Germany. This culminated in the looting of the Magnus Hirschfeld Institute of Sexology and the infamous burning of the initial decades of transgender healthcare research, as well as the internment, forced detransition, and murder of transgender citizens. When confronted with numerous scholarly sources, she insisted, linked to another thread, that labelled the first transgender patient a troubled male. And on the 14th of March, she released this statement. While I'm used to the gross distraction techniques used by the more extreme faction of the trans activism, the claim that I am a Holocaust denier is baseless and disgusting, as can be easily seen from my own Twitter account. I have always been a staunch supporter of the Jewish community and have spoken out consistently and repeatedly against anti-Semitism. I am familiar with such activists' assertions that transgender people have been uniquely persecuted and oppressed throughout history, but claims that trans people were the first targets of the Nazis, a claim I refuted on X, and which led to their accusations, and that I uphold Nazi ideology around gender, is a new low. Pop quiz. Do you think the statement she released made it better or worse? J.K. Rowling didn't want to be called a Holocaust denier. That backfired. The author's attempt to quiet her critiques ended up making the accusations far more viral. Myra Fox wrote on April the 16th, "The Streisand effect is a phenomenon that occurs when someone attempts to hide information, but winds up boosting it to far more eyes. The name comes from the time Barbra Streisand tried to suppress a picture of her house. The lawsuit against the photographers ended up garnering far more attention than the original photo, which was not a paparazzi pic, just an aerial photograph taken to document erosion, ever would have." Another famous woman currently in the midst of a massive Streisand effect right now, J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling is a Holocaust denier, trended on Twitter this week. From Holocaust denial, next we have some victim blaming. On a tweet from April the 1st that originally said, "You are very selective in how you respond, but your hateful comments were intended by you to provoke the very reaction you highlight. I'm sure you can cope with a bit of vulgar abuse. However, the line is crossed when you deliberately misgender. That is abusive conduct." To which J.K. Rowling replied, "You were asking for it. Stop complaining. You're not hurt. It's your mouth that's the problem. Men like this watch women threatened with death, rape and mutilation for the crime of defending their rights, and the only problem they can see is that we're still speaking out." Next, in a previous episode we talked about the self-ID situation in Scotland and how self-ID refers to basically reduce the legal hurdles that trans people have to go through in order to just tell the world that they are trans. Well, at that time, J.K. Rowling was very overtly against that policy being pushed in Scotland. Well, she's still talking about laws, people. Foreshadowing is a tool used as a literary device because we all know where that goes. However, let's look at the new hate crime law that she's talking about this week. This is where it gets complicated. This is why I need to print out all of these pictures of J.K. Rowling to show you the timeline of what's going on. This caught most of us by surprise because she had a sudden change of heart. She woke up towards the end of March, Trans Day of Visibility, it all kind of makes sense. And she said, no, I'm going to include all these women in this legal jargon I'm talking about, including trans women. She became an ally overnight. Miracles do happen, especially around Easter. There was this guy that came back to life. I don't know about him. Scotland's Hate Crime Act comes in effect today. Women gain no additional protection, of course, but well-known trans activists Beth Douglas, darling of prominent Scottish politicians, falls within protected category. Phew. Only joking. April Fools. Is this going to be annoying to the mic? Probably. Am I sorry? No. Only Fools. That's an April Fool's joke. She has such a good sense of humour. I mean, she's funny. I mean, she fooled absolutely no one, though. She fooled no one. Only kidding. Obviously, the people mentioned in the above tweets aren't women at all, but men. Every last one of them. Oh, we're having a hair moment. In early 2024, Rowling targets Scotland's new hate crime. When Scotland's new Hate Crime and Public Order Act went into effect in April, Rowling tried to bait them into arresting her with posts online. The law criminalises stirring up hate against people based on their race, religion, disability, sexuality, or gender identity. By passing the law, Scotland, in quote, placed higher value on the feelings of men performing their idea of femaleness, however misogynistically or opportunistically, than on the rights of freedoms of actual women and girls, Rowling said on a thread on X. If anything she wrote qualified as an offence under the new law, she then continued to say, I look forward to being arrested when I return to the birthplace of the Scottish Enlightenment. You can say many things about J.K. Rowling, but one thing you can also say is that she's willing to be a martyr for the cause. She's practically asking to be arrested. Rowling says she would rather spend time in prison than correctly gender a trans person, mocking several prominent trans women, including Monroe Bergdorf. Out of the transphobic frying pan, into the transphobic fire. Now we have the Hilary Cass review. I covered this on my channel. It's a nightmare. The whole thing had like AI in it back before AI was uncool. And now I look back and I realised it wasn't peer reviewed. I covered it on my channel when I was in my live stream era.
The Cass review claims that it has looked at all of the evidence and determined that the evidence for puberty blockers and gender affirming care for trans youth is remarkably weak. In doing so, it cast out 101 out of 103 studies that showed gender affirming care is effective and safe for transgender youth everywhere.
They've just thrown out a whole bunch of studies that basically didn't say what they wanted to. And now the transphobic media and any other people that want to use this as an example are going to just completely run with this. So this should alarm you, whether you care about the trans community or not. Any of you OGs that remember that, drop me a comment. Say hi. Hi y'all. Thank you for all of the love. Anyway, Hilary Cass review came out. Honestly, it's giving incompetence. But of course, the TERFs are like, oh my God, we're so vindicated. In response to a tweet by Emma Russell on the 10th of April that said, Cass review is a methodologically flawed, ideologically led study that isn't worth the paper it's printed on, J.K. Rowling responded with, over the last 4 years, Hilary Cass has conducted the most robust review of the medical evidence for transitioning children that's ever been conducted. Mere hours after it was released to the press and public, committed ideologues are doubling down. These are the people who've deemed opponents far right for wanting to know there are proper checks and balances in place before autistic, gay and abused kids, groups that are all overrepresented at gender clinics, are left sterilised, inorgasmic, lifelong patients. I understand that the review's conclusions will have come as a seismic shock to those who've hounded and demonised whistleblowers and smeared opponents as bigots and transphobes, but trying to discredit Hilary Cass's work isn't merely misguided, it's actively malign. Even if you don't feel ashamed of cheerleading for what now looks like severe medical malpractice, even if you don't want to accept that you might have been wrong, where's your sense of self-preservation? The bandwagon you hopped on so gladly is hurtling towards a cliff. And if I sound angry, it's because I'm bloody angry. I read Cass this morning and my anger's been mounting all day. Kids have been irreversibly harmed and thousands are complicit, not just medics. but the celebrity mouthpiece is unquestioning media and cynical corporation. The consequences of this scandal will play out for decades. You cheered it on. You did all you could to impede and misrepresent research. You tried to bully people out of their jobs for opposing you. Young people have been experimented on, left infertile and in pain. I thought the last tweet was going to be the last, but I just burst into tears. The Cass review may be a watershed moment, but it comes too late for detransitioners who've written me heartbreaking letters of regret. Today's not a triumph. It's the laying bare of a tragedy. Honestly, she really thought she ate with that, but anyone at the time really looking into the Hillary Cass review understood that it was completely ignoring a whole bunch of science that actually was on the side of the trans kids that it talked to, and it completely confirmation bias took more information from the kind of anti-trans stuff. I mean, at the time that was obvious, but even more retrospective look has happened on that study, and people are taking even less from it. People are understanding it was a bit of a, I mean, I don't want to say hoax because allegedly, in my opinion, like, I can't say that kind of stuff online, but the whole thing seemed very fishy and not in the old kind of word that we used to use. It seemed very sus from the beginning. But of course, the anti-trans movement used this as complete vindication, even though they completely are ignoring a whole bunch of other data in order to accept this review. And also, this is coming from the community that seem to not know much more than basic biology. So when it suits them, they're happy to quote a study and look into the science and the data. But the minute you start talking about intersex people, then suddenly, no, science isn't real and the earth is flat. Then we have another cheeky little case of J.K. Rowling platforming a far-right Twitter account. As per this Reddit post, J.K. Rowling also boosted a far-right racist account known as Myth-Informed that originally quoted Dr. Robert Garofalo when he said, "I'll turn to the child and be like, so yeah, what gender identity do you have?" Which, side note, is a very fair question. To which J.K. Rowling boosted the quote tweet saying, "The Cass report has revealed how very poor the evidence base is for transitioning children. We already know autistic, same-sex attracted and trauma-experienced youth are overrepresented at gender clinics. Nevertheless, this man boasts about conducting zero psychological evaluation of children, proud that there's no battery of tests, explaining that he simply asks the child what their, in parenthesis, unproven, unfalsifiable gender identity is. The subtext is clear. Unlike the worried parents, who really gets what kids want, how can anyone still believe this won't come to be seen as the medical scandal of the century?" Then we have another case of the erasure of trans men in a lot of these debates. It's always trans women, trans women, trans women, especially from J.K. Rowling's perspective. But here is an example where she's so deep into the psychosis at this point that she can't even realise that trans men exist, and they are also just as hurt by all of her vitriol. On the 25th of April, J.K. Rowling was also seen to be arguing with a trans man for 2.5 days on Twitter, saying, "Nobody's pissed off or trying to silence you. I simply disagree with your public expressed opinion, which is one I've seen repeatedly and indeed addressed just last week. You've replied to me many, many times, so I wasn't aware you want anonymity over and above your name and avatar. From now on, I'll happily hide your name. I'm interested in whether you see any irony in telling me I'm not trans, so not qualified to speak, when you have literally no idea what it is to grow up female, yet feel entitled to redefine women to include yourself." To which the pissed off lawyer said, "I'm a trans man. I grew up female, and I didn't transition until I was 40. I know what being a woman means." Okay, now more of the war is needed. Daniel Radcliffe, editing me, put Daniel Radcliffe in there. He has been an ally and on the side of the trans people since the very beginning. And he comes out and says that J.K. Rowling's anti-trans rhetoric has made him really sad, which is really sweet. He's been a complete ally. If you've been watching this whole series, you know why. And did my jacket fall off in the process of clipping that? Yes.
There are some people in the world who are just like not trying to engage with this conversation in any kind of good faith.
Later in April, Radcliffe says Rowling's transphobia makes him really sad, as he's been an adamant defender of LGBTQ+ rights and has spoken out against Rowling's transphobia for years. In an April interview with The Atlantic, the actor said he and the other cast members have spoken out about the author's continual attack on trans people to help adversely affected fans and send the message that not everyone in the Harry Potter universe shares the opinion of the author. He told the publication, "It makes me really sad ultimately, because I do look at the person that I met, the times that we met, and the books that she wrote, and the world that she created, and all of that is to me so deeply empathetic." Then we have the gorgeous, goated Emma Watson. She has always been very vocal as well. She's here for all the witches. She's already said she's against what J.K. Rowling has said in a more of a feminist standpoint, which just goes to show you that people using the "I'm a feminist" line just to prove that like they're anti-trans could also be flipped on the other side. And if you are for all the witches, then you understand that trans women are women as well, and also that the conversation, like I said earlier, is bigger than just trans women anyway, but fine. So we have Emma Watson here. Well, JK up here apparently. Well, what does JK Rowling have to say about all these trans allies? She says she won't even forgive them if they said sorry. Plot twist. They don't want to say sorry and they're not going to. April 10. Rowling says she will not forgive Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson. Latching on to one of the anti-trans movement's most relied on strategies, using junk science to prove they are correct, Rowling posted a thread on X on the 10th of April 2024 in response to the Cass review. The report was widely criticised by trans advocates and healthcare experts from the UK because it asserts that existing research on puberty blockers and hormone therapy is unreliable. Unsurprised to no one, Rowling and her ilk felt vindicated by the report, expressing their content across social media, while another ex-user responded to her post by saying, "Just waiting for Dan and Emma to give you a very public apology. Safe in the knowledge that you will forgive them." Rowling let her fans know she will not be doing any forgiving. "Not safe, I'm afraid," she wrote. Celebs who cozied up to the movement intent on eroding women's hard-won rights and who used their platforms to cheer on the transitioning of minors can save their apologies for traumatised detransitioners and vulnerable women relying on same-sex spaces. Another common talking point in the anti-trans movement is that us trans women are just imitating women and we're just stereotyping what we think women are. Which is like, okay, what is any woman doing then? Really? How do any women decide what they want to do? Do they all just randomly live on an island with no other people and they all have the same hairstyle? Of course not. Some of us have straighteners, some of us try and curl our hair with straighteners, and, well, this happens. Now, next we have J.K. Rowling making fun of a trans woman for using the term bra length hair. Which, like, trans women grow boobs, or some of them, and they need bras. That's just physically true. Okay, you can be anti-trans, you can still believe at this point in the series that J.K. Rowling is not transphobic, and honestly, impressive, somewhat. But you have to understand that, like, trans women grow real boobs, some of them, on hormones. Okay? Some of them get surgery as well. Breast augmentation. It's a thing, Barbara. They're called boobs, Ed. So how can you not understand that they would wear bras? And so why is it funny for a trans woman to say bra length hair? The only way is if you are still stuck in, according to J.K. Rowling 2020, where you don't believe trans women are who they are. You don't believe trans people are who they are. You don't believe even non-binary people exist. You barely even believe in intersex people. Don't even get me started on the asexuals, according to J.K. Rowling. An anti-trans writer, Hazel Appleyard, posted a screenshot of a picture that a woman named Pearl took of herself on X. Appleyard mocked her for the selfie because Pearl referred to her bra strap length hair in it, which really seemed to activate TERFs across the internet, according to Rowling. Instead of enjoying her castle and piles of money, Rowling added her opinion of Pearl's selfie, saying, "You really didn't know the basic lengths are glittery plastic earrings length, bra strength length, suspender belt length, and thong length. That's how all proper women talk to their hairdressers." Probably unbeknownst to Rowling, bra strength length is actually a common way to refer to hair length. As pointed out by ex-user Naomi A. Further, she outlined the sad trajectory Rowling has taken into trans exclusionary radical feminism. In 2020, the author said she would march for trans people if they were being discriminated against on the basis of being trans. But just 4 years later, Rowling is continuing to engage in escalating degrees of harassment of trans people online. To be making fun of trans women for using the term bra length hair, to me, is just like, you're dumb. Next, J.K. Rowling goes after Chase. The chase is on. Let's not do puns. I can see why the creator I'm parodying today does this. It gives me this sense of, like, feisty. I'm feeling feisty. I haven't been drinking. You wouldn't know it. I haven't. On May the 11th, Rowling attacks a trans advocate and attorney, Chase Strangio. Rowling decided to put trans advocate and ACLU attorney, Chase Strangio, in the line of fire for her 14.2 million followers. Screenshotted and reshared a post of Strangio's from 2020 that said, "If you are angry or think it's unfair for trans girls to beat a cis girl in a sporting event, then fundamentally you don't think trans girls are real girls. It's that simple." Rowling added her commentary to the post, astounding how often militant trans activists tell the rest of us, so what you're saying is trans girls aren't real girls. Yes, that's exactly what we're saying, she wrote. Girls are being robbed of honours and opportunities by mediocre, uber-privileged, established-enabled boys. Aside from it being unhinged that a billionaire would take the time to tweet about a nearly 5-year-old tweet of Strangio's, he pointed out just how out of touch with reality Rowling's point is. In Chase's post, it said, "This morning I woke up to an unusually high number of hate messages on my Instagram. I couldn't figure it out until I realised that JK Rowling had screenshotted and tweeted a 4.5-year-old tweet from me. I don't use Twitter anymore, so I only know when these things happen when they veer into Instagram. A few things are striking about this though. First, just continues to be wild and unhinged that a billionaire is out here trolling 5-year-old tweets and making this her whole personality. Secondly, the discourse and legal landscape have devolved so much. In February 2020, when I tweeted this, no state had passed a single explicitly anti-trans law since HB2 in 2016. The rhetoric around sport was just beginning to escalate and no state came close to passing a medical care ban. Now half the country has banned trans girls from sports and banned gender-affirming medical care for minors. Jokes aside, this is another example of JK Rowling using her platform to literally bully other people. Like we saw a couple years ago with Jessie Gender, if she retweets someone, she has an army of TERFs at her side to do her bidding. Which, like, okay, is a modern day problem that we will have to work out. And I love, there is a cyberbullying, like, meme going around where it's like, dude, just log offline, just turn off the computer, which I did giggle, okay? But regardless, she is automatically sending a lot of hate with who she targets, and she did this again, and I just think it's irresponsible at least. Now, this next one is another example of how she, in her head, fundamentally doesn't believe that transgender people exist, and that's transphobic. So unless you're new here, that's kind of what we're covering about her actions. She's transphobic, because some people seem to just not agree. On the 12th of May, JK Rowling tweeted, "Calling a man is not bullying or punching down. Cross-dressing straight men are currently one of the most pandered to demographics in existence, and women are under no obligation to applaud the people caricaturing us." Calling trans women straight men cross-dressing it's not exactly trans positive, is it? If you are new to this series, by all means, go and check out my previous episodes. I have been documenting everything JK Rowling did that was transphobic since pretty much 2020, but there was a few things like 2017. Basically, your girl has been going down the right-wing TERFy pipeline for a long time now. Okay, I'm calling it her dive into TERF madness, and we are on the road to 10,000 subscribers. This is a small channel, but I'm going to this much effort. Do I have a green screen? Yes, I do. If you want to be one of the OG 10,000 that supported this channel, because I got big plans, baby. I got big plans. Then subscribe now and you'll be one of the originals. You'll be one of the OG that supported the matriarchetype. The matriarchetype? We're just adding thes now, okay? You just can't do that kind of stuff, okay? This is a pair of tongs. Did I reach out to the person I parodied today to see if they would get involved? Did they respond? No. Again, I'm a small channel. Next, we have another ally, David Tennant. Doctor Who, I hear you ask? Literally, Doctor Who. He comes out rolling on the side of the LGBTQI+ community, to which JK Rowling calls him part of the gender Taliban. Honestly, her boomer is so showing. On the 24th of June, Rowling says actor David Tennant is part of the gender Taliban for defending trans rights. Doctor Who actor David Tennant faced JK Rowling's wrath after calling out conservative right politician Kemi Badenoch in an acceptance speech for the Celebrity Ally Award at the British LGBT Awards on June 24th, 2024.
I attract the ire of the occasional online idiot, but I don't have social media, so even I have to be told about that by my brilliant wife Georgia, who is the real engine behind anything we do. She educates me about empathy and understanding, and she has been a huge educator for me. I suppose if I'm honest, I'm a little depressed by the fact that acknowledging that everyone has the right to be who they want to be and live their life how they want to live it, as long as they're not hurting anyone else, should merit any kind of special award or special mention, because it's common sense, isn't it? We shouldn't live in a world where that is worth remarking on. However, until we wake up and Kemi Badenoch doesn't exist anymore, I don't wish ill of her, I just wish her to shut up.
As the UK Minister of Women and Equalities, Badenoch has pushed anti-trans efforts like encouraging the UK Financial Conduct Authority to drop trans-inclusive workplace protection and promising to rewrite the country's Equality Act to allow organisations to ban trans women from single-sex spaces. After Badenoch responded to Tennant on X the next day, saying, "I will not be silenced by men who prioritise applause for Stonewall over the safety of women and girls." Rowling wrote on X, "This man is talking about survivors who want female-only care. The nurses currently suing their health trust for making them change in front of a man. Girls and women losing sporting opportunities to males and female prisoners incarcerated with convicted sex offenders." Then J.K. Rowling has this whole beef with Sally Hine. Covered in a Reddit post, J.K. Rowling picks a fight with author Sally Hine over book Is Gender Fluid. In the original tweet, Sally says, "There are very sound reasons why gender-critical work is rarely published. Notably, Gender Critical's claims lack evidence, without scientific rigour, and fail to meet publishing standards regarding the contribution to original knowledge." J.K. replied saying, "I've given your book Is Gender Fluid to several people who want a short primer on what gender identity ideology is all about. So far, 100% of readers have rated it self-contradictory, unevidented bollocks. You have my permission to use that quote on your cover." She then goes on to berate her by joining people in the comments making fun of it, saying, "To be followed by the bestsellers Are Ghosts Altitudinal? Is Christianity Orange? And my personal favourite, Is Telepathy Squeaky?" Sally Hines replied with so much courtesy, I can't imagine being this nice of a human being, by simply saying, "Dear J.K. Rowling, thank you for contributing to my royalties for Is Gender Fluid. I have not reciprocated." Again, obviously I knew in this project that I would see her transphobia. I'm also just seeing, she is not funny. She is not original. She is kind of cringe in general. Even without this anti-trans business that she's so obsessed with, I feel like I would have just looked back and be like, oh, she is kind of cringe, actually. Enough from you, laptop. We're all tired. And suffice to say, trans women are living in her head rent-free. On July 6th, in reply to Harriet Harman, who tweeted, "Now record 264 women MPs. Chance to work cross-party on women's priorities. Will convene meeting all women MPs, enabling them to embark on process of setting up powerful women's caucus." Something completely non-related to the trans community, J.K. Rowling responded, "How do you know they're women?" On the 17th of July, J.K. also shared the SEGM organisation and said, "This is false. The vast majority of children grow out of gender dysphoria if allowed to go through puberty. The single best cure is letting nature take its course." Okay, another debunking time. Referring to any form of solution to transgenderism as a cure to stop the transgenderism rather than giving gender euphoria, which is the goal of transitioning, is really obscene. So to say something needs a cure implies that it's an illness that needs reversing. And so this is also one of her core anti-trans kind of transphobic ideologies, is that being transgender is a mental illness and it should be reversed. I had a very neoliberal upbringing. I almost fell on the same side of thinking gender dysphoria was an illness. I do think it's something that needs to be acted on, but does it mean that we should act towards a version of heteronormative life or normal cisgender aiming life? No. People can be who they want to be, Joanne. Get over it. Now, it's the Olympics. Imane Khalif on the scene. Let's talk about it. In early August, at the 2024 Olympics, Italian welterweight boxer Angelia Carini forfeited her match with Algerian boxer Imane Khalif 46 seconds after it began. Carini said it was because she could not endure Khalif's punches, which prompted a litany of unwarranted backlash against the Algerian boxer. This is the second time in the series as well that J.K. Rowling has been overtly connected with Elon Musk. And I'm not going to lie, if you have any ideologies that link you to that billionaire, from one billionaire to another, the alarm bells should be ringing. You should be like, hey, are we sure about this? Elon Musk agrees with me, and he is Elon Musk. Ooh. The subsequent transvestigation, an anti-trans witch hunt in the case to determine Khalif's biological sex through racist phrenology and pseudoscience, was helmed by prominent TERFs like Rowling and right-wing conservative pundits such as Elon Musk and J.D. Vance. As Queen TERF, Rowling inserted herself into the middle of the attack, calling Khalif a male who knows he's protected by a misogynistic sporting establishment, enjoying the distress of a woman he's just punched in the head and whose life ambition he's just shattered. Khalif is cisgender, but the boxer found herself in the midst of a familiar firestorm that many cis athletes have endured as anti-transgender policing sentiments have grown globally. Fortunately, as the Olympic gold medalist, Khalif knows how to punch back. The boxer filed a lawsuit against Rowling and other prominent figures for launching a massive cyberbullying campaign against her. Now, do you want the good news from this or the bad news? I'm going to give you the bad news first because I can't hear you through the screen. Comment which one you asked for. The bad news is this isn't the first time that she will cause a scene with a main Khalif. This actually comes back all the way into modern day 2026, which is going to be the final episode of Film Today. She's still going on about it, even though this is, by now's definition, 2 years ago. The good news is out of this, we did get the legendary black mold meme. On August the 3rd, J.K. Rowling posted a picture of her house and people turned her alleged black mold into a meme. In the midst of attacking Khalif after her Olympic win, Rowling chose a new profile photo which featured her walls in the background. People across X were quick to point out that, much like Rowling's views, her walls looked as though they were covered in black mould. Others, at NBC News suggested that it was in fact wallpaper. The speculation quickly turned into a well-circulated meme that has haunted the internet since. It's safe to say that Rowling has since changed her profile photo to one no longer including the walls of her mansion. Another hindsight moment is that, looking back now, the trans people have been officially banned from the Olympics, or 5 of them. So people are saying, yes, she's transphobic, but she hasn't got any direct action towards what happens in the world. I don't know. She's paying for policy. She's a loud person at this point. She then continued to tweet on the 3rd of August, the IOC discriminates against female athletes. It abolished a simple test that would have stopped Paris being remembered for televising male violence. Bring back the cheek swab. For female boxers, the bad old days are now. On the 7th of August, in response to Maya Force data that said deeply irresponsible, allowing individuals with XY chromosomes, testes and male levels of testosterone to punch women for sport if their passport says F, J.K. Rowling said, commentators pretending critics of the IOC's reliance on documents rather than sex testing think Khalif is trans are strawmanning. I don't claim Khalif is trans. My objection, and that of many others, is to male violence against women becoming an Olympic sport. Gross when you consider that Khalif is a cis woman. The things that she's talking about here have directly been affected. I'm not saying obviously she got that changed, but it's part of a movement that she's a part of, and now trans people are banned from the Olympics. That's, to be honest, that's just, I can't even sugarcoat that with humour. That's just crazy. We're just being banned from things. Trans people got banned from playing chess. Chess. I mean, tell me you're misogynistic without telling me you're misogynistic. Then after she's denying all of the shit she's spewing, she then goes on to do this. So this tweet is talking about Baylor's Place, which we covered in a previous episode. Check it out here. Thumbnail me. This is another example of where she's physically putting her money, which is her profits from the Harry Potter series and all of her other garbage she's released. So it goes to say that the Hogwarts Legacy game, the Harry Potter HBO reboot, that makes her money, and she spends money on bad things. So don't give her money, okay? On the 13th of September, someone asked JK, all funding should be diverted to Baylor's Place, the only place women can be safe. To which JK Rowling responded, Baylor's Place doesn't need it. I'm covering all costs. But government funding for Rape Crisis Scotland should be withheld if a single-sex service can't be provided, because that's what the overwhelming majority of female survivors want and need. In early 2024, Rowling responds to Donald Trump's win. Rowling referred back to her earlier post, where she said the UK left had monumentally on gender identity ideology. Women like her aren't and never have been far right. She said in the post, we simply want the left to wake the hell up because we're watching it do its utmost to alienate people it used to represent. She clarified that she was not saying that Trump's win was down to the gender stuff. As she is not an American voter, she can't judge. However, she pointed out that the Labour Party won the UK election and they have embraced gender identity ideology wholeheartedly, which, oh my gosh, they so haven't, but okay, that's another video for another day. Then we had this biblical style action from this group. I shouldn't laugh, it's serious. On the 11th of October, youth activists released thousands of live crickets at an anti-trans conference with Rowling in attendance. During the annual conference for the LGB Alliance, a trans exclusionary alternative to Stonewall, the UK's largest LGBTQ+ organisation, Rowling gave her opening remarks about the supposed dangers that trans identity posed to cisgender queer people, at one point saying lesbians don't have penises. Rowling further stated, "As I've said many times before, it must be right that lesbians, gay men and bisexuals are able to live and love freely and define themselves accurately because, as has been said before, if sex isn't real, then there is no same-sex attraction." In what Rowling called a homophobic disruption, youth organisers Trans Kids Deserve Better released a box of crickets during the conference, causing a mass chaos in the midst of anti-trans speakers spewing misinformation about the alleged harm of gender-affirming care, which has been disproven by years of longitudinal research. And then we have this. On the 12th of November, in response to Littlest Homosexual saying the reality of sex to trans activists is like a globe to flat earthers, J.K. Rowling continued the joke by saying, "How do you know the world's round? Have you been to space? Try and define a globe, it's literally impossible. Planetary identity is a social construct. The Inuit have 856 words for sphere, and half of them also mean triangle, you ignorant bigot." I don't know why Inuits are catching strays here, but I mean, I'm not surprised at this point. Then, in November, we're nearly the end now, people, stay focused, we have some more transvestigation. And, shocking to no one, this person is also another person of colour. It's almost like there's a theme here, maybe for another video, another time. On the 27th of November, Rowling transvestigates Barbara Banda, yet another cis athlete after she won BBC Footballer of the Year. If there's one thing Rowling is going to do, it's accuse cis athletes of being trans under the guise of protecting women's sports. Less than 5 months after the Imane Khalif debacle, Rowling joined the transvestigation of Zambian soccer player Barbara Banda after she was crowned 2024 Women's Footballer of the Year. After a public anti-trans, anti-intersex witch hunt based on pure speculation about Banda's assigned sex, Rowling weighed in on BBC's decision to award her the title. The BBC decided that this was more efficient than going door to door to spit directly in women's faces, Rowling wrote. Again, always good to include another retrospective of how her mind has changed and she's delved more into this transphobic TERFy madness. On the 5th of December, we go back to the conversation originally with Sally Hines, where Sally says one can only not believe in gender identity if one does not believe in masculinity or femininity, or, trigger warning, non-binary. And that would mean not believing in the idea of man and woman. And then I would be writing queer science fiction. To which J.K. Rowling originally responded, "Is it now your position that gender identities might or might not exist? You state in your book gender identity refers to each person's internal sense of being male, female, a combination of the two, or neither. It is a core part of who people know themselves to be." And then on the 5th of December, J.K. Rowling writes, "I'm fairly sure I can believe men and women exist without believing in gender identities." Outright denying trans kids exist. On the 28th of December, J.K. Rowling goes on to say there are no trans kids. No child is born in the wrong body. They are only adults like you, prepared to sacrifice the health of minors to bolster your belief in an ideology that will end up wreaking more harm than lobotomies and false memory syndrome combined. That's to originally writing on the 28th of December that said, "I wish you would use your immense power for good. Your hateful focus on trans kids is hurtful and unnecessary." To celebrate the end of TERFmas, on the 29th of December, J.K. Rowling finished the year with, "Kids are watching TikTok videos of surgeons selling the idea that bodies can be modified like Lego. School affirms kids' trans identities behind parents' backs. A certain kids' charity in the UK sent out breast binders to pubescent girls without parental consent. Many parents are struggling to protect kids from a zeitgeist, telling them that anxieties are puberty. Sexuality and growing up can be fixed by lifelong reliance on Big Pharma and by doctors who make Frankenstein look ethical." Thank you for sticking around to the end. I really appreciate you. First and foremost, this is an ongoing series. There is an episode next week. If you can't wait that long, go and check out my Patron, okay? Otherwise, I've got no excuses for you. If you're new here, hi, welcome. I don't usually dress like this, but go and check out the previous episodes. See what else she's been up to. Honestly, she's been a busy bitch. Okay, that's about it for me this week. If you like this video, please leave it a like because it helps me out so much. Also, leave a comment of what you thought if I missed any transphobic moments of J.K. Rowling that you have to tell me about. Make sure you subscribe if you want to be nasty. If not, you are disgusting. And turn your bell notifications on so you know every single time I post, otherwise you are gross. And if you want to see more of my stuff, then check out my Patreon and follow me on Patreon. Thank you so much. If you can tell by now who I parodied, drop it below. If not, Girl, what are you even doing? Are you chronically online or what? Thank you so much. See you in the next one. Love you all so much. See you later. Bye.